Hey guys, welcome to the Liberal Hive Mind, a channel solely focused on exposing the abundant hypocrisy of the left. I'm seeing a lot of Democrats on Twitter complaining about this, calling it extremism, harassment. But really, I don't think you guys are one to talk. Your politicians essentially set the standard, and ironically enough, the individual who set that standard is actually Nancy Pelosi's friend, Maxine Waters.
Let's make sure we show up wherever we have to show up. And if you see anybody from that cabinet in a restaurant, in a department store, at a gasoline station, you get out and you create a crowd. And you push back on them. And you tell them they're not welcome anymore, anywhere.
You set the standard, you set the rule, and now you gotta live by it. Except, of course, rules for thee, but not for me. I forgot about that one. The same rules that apply to everyone else don't seem to apply to Democrats. But largely, I'm just playing around. Of course, there's no comparison. What Maxine Waters back then was calling for was the actual harassment and intimidation of Trump supporters as they live their everyday life and go to restaurants and exist in public spaces. This moment with Nancy Pelosi, I'd say, was probably just a simple act of patriotism, a simple act of independent journalism, as a brave man in Nancy Pelosi's own district of all places confronts her on the Democrat Party, or rather the Uniparty's position of Ukraine first and America last. We've got some stuff to get into, so let's roll the tape. Alright folks, take a look at this headline right here. Watch, Nancy Pelosi is confronted by a patriot in San Francisco. Why do we have $150 billion going to Ukraine when we have homeless in your own city?
Let me just get you to
Nancy, can you tell us why we have all the $150 billion going to Ukraine when we have homeless on the streets in your own city? Nancy, can I get some stock trading tips on how to get semiconductors in Taiwan? Nancy, why do we? Is your son involved with Hunter Biden?
And you know what? Good on this guy. What an absolute patriot. If the politicians are going to sell out to the globalist agenda, then somebody's got to fight for American citizens, and good on this patriot. Perfect question to be asking. How is Ukraine priority number one of the American taxpayer, especially in a place like San Francisco, Nancy Pelosi's district, where this is an everyday sight? We're talking about the homelessness capital of the United States of America. Honestly, probably the homelessness capital of the entire Western world. Also simultaneously in the richest state. California's economy is one of the biggest in the world, bigger than almost every single country on the globe. And those are regular sights on the street. Does that make any sense to anyone? Clearly if you were a politician, especially a San Francisco politician, your priority number one would probably be figuring out a solution to the problem, cleaning up the streets, and doing right by your constituents, especially considering the negative impacts that your community faces because of this absolute crisis, this humanitarian crisis. But from Nancy Pelosi's perspective, the Democrat perspective, and of course the Uniparty Republican goon perspective, homelessness in San Francisco and homelessness across the United States doesn't even really crack the top 10 of important American issues. Somehow Ukraine is number one. Probably at this point, Ukraine is number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, all the way to 10. When it comes to the legislative agenda, it's impossible to get anything done. When Donald Trump was initially elected into office, when he was inaugurated in 2017, there were 2 years with a Republican House and Senate majority. He couldn't even get basic funding for the wall. He couldn't even get Republicans and Democrats to take healthcare reforms seriously. But funding for Ukraine, a blank check, endless, unquestioned spending, well, that's something politicians from both sides of the aisle are willing to meet on. It's unwavering and unquestioned support. They don't ask questions. They're not interested. More money to Ukraine? Where do I sign? That's basically the only question that they ask. And it's high time Americans start asking a very important question in this whole thing. Well, what about me, the American taxpayer? What about us and the people we care and the people we love? It's really an important question, and really it's an important challenge to the establishment. And it's a lovely sight to see people finally challenging the political uniparty. Democrats are taking the angle that this is an unacceptable way to confront a congressperson. But is it really? It's Nancy Pelosi in her own district facing questions from somebody who probably resides there. It's Nancy Pelosi who's supposedly a public servant, a public figure. This concept or the standard that Western politicians don't need to address the public is a complete farce. You have a bunch of these crony, corrupt politicians, these freaking slithery snakes, who do everything to avoid answering questions properly and straightforward. They never address the public. They honestly don't go out in public without security or outside of private venues where everything's controlled for them. And whenever you catch them in public and you ask them questions, they say, "No comment. You'll have to call my office to get a response. Or you'll have to refer to my statements previously on the issue." Answer the damn question. You're a public servant, you're in public, and I think that should be a basic requirement. But instead, we have these cowardly politicians who are loathed by the people, who don't serve or actually represent the people, and so they avoid any type of scrutiny by avoiding answering questions, by avoiding actually being out in public. You know, they can't be out in public. Nancy Pelosi can't go anywhere. Most of these politician clowns can't go anywhere because everywhere they go, it's an embarrassing PR blunder disaster for them. That's why we see people like Nancy Pelosi and Ilhan Omar, AOC, getting booed off stage when they make public appearances during certain events. If you're a politician or a supposed leader who doesn't have basic public support, well then you're probably not doing your job very well. You're probably not a leader at all and you should probably resign. Is it too much to ask for the standard to be leaders that we actually respect, leaders who are admired by the public? I really don't think that's too much to ask. I just think that our standards for politicians and leadership in the West have become so pathetically low that this is just kind of the status quo and this is what we deal with. It's shameful, it's disgraceful. A political elite class that sips on margaritas and goes to private events, living in private communities, multi-million-dollar waterfront property, and country clubs that the normal plebeians aren't allowed to exist in. People who hold themselves to a much higher regard and don't feel as if they're beholden to you, even though that's exactly what their job title and job description essentially describes. And it's a uniparty issue, but the Democrat Party is the worst when it comes to this stuff, and we saw it in East Palestine, Ohio. Joe Biden, the president of the United States, so focused on delivering $500 million to Ukraine personally, flies there, gives a speech, hugs and probably kisses, and at this point, probably going to second, third, and fourth base with freaking Volodymyr Zelensky. You know, that's his top priority. Meanwhile, the people in East Palestine, Ohio, Joe Biden can't even recall if he's spoken to the mayor of East Palestine.
So do you plan to travel there, and have you talked with the mayor?
I can't recall that. I don't think I've talked to the mayor. I've talked to everyone else there, and multiple times. Talked to both the senators, both governors. I've talked to everyone there is to talk to. And we've made it clear that everything is available.
And when asked if Joe Biden's going to visit the area, the crisis center, this was his response.
Palestine, Ohio. Are you planning to travel to East Palestine, Ohio?
This time not. I did a whole video. What the hell? Zoom. All I see every time I think of Zoom is that song in my generation. Who's zooming who?
Who's zooming who? I don't even know what kind of drugs this guy is on. I mean, clearly he's on some pretty strong meds. But why is it too much to ask for the President of the United States to visit crisis zones? You know, Nancy Pelosi representing her district in San Francisco, why is it too much to ask for her to be on the streets on a near constant basis, seeing what's really going on when it comes to the crime in these homeless encampments, the mental health crisis, the substance abuse crisis? Why is that too much to ask? How is she supposed to lead? How is she supposed to do anything, living in her private communities with a giant gate built around her properties? How is Joe Biden supposed to lead? How is Joe Biden supposed to make anything better at the southern border if he's unwilling to actually visit and see what's really going on? If that one time that he did visit for like 20 minutes to do just a fluff piece for ABC, and the local government of that Texas city cleared out all of the homeless people and all of the illegal migrants living on the streets, how is he supposed to get a good understanding of what's going on so he could tackle the issue? How is he supposed to raise concern and awareness for the people of East Palestine if he's unwilling to call the mayor or get on the ground and see what's really going on? Of course, they're not going to visit. Of course, they don't care. They're too busy with more important things like spending your money in Ukraine and starting World War III. You know, the American voter's real priority. Priority number one of the American taxpayer. Give me a frickin' break. These people are awful. Just awful. That's what I got for you guys, though. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a like and possibly subscribe to the channel. Of course, you know that we would love to have you here at the Liberal Hive Mind. And with that said, thanks for watching, and hopefully, we'll see you on the next one.